Handle Your High with Tadayoshi.
Hey, I'm back with Handle Your High with me, Tadayoshi, and I got my good buddy Arash Rahbar. Hey, Arash, how you doing, my friend?
Good, man. Good to be back.
Hey, I know you've been doing a lot of traveling around lately. You and I haven't got a chance to talk much about what's been going on in your life. So, what's like after the Olympia and everything? What's been going on with you? Like, I know you've been doing some traveling with I think were you in Kuwait or somewhere recently?
I was in Dubai. I was traveling for a few weeks. I was in Denver, Dallas, Dubai, mainly stuff for Dymatize. Dubai was, of course, a Dubai Muscle Show. It's awesome show. It grew a lot from last year. I was there last year as well. And that's it. I'm back home for now. I'm sure I'll do a little bit of traveling in 2019. But just kind of hunkering down after the Olympia. I was just, kept semi-dieting and traveling and shoots and stuff. So now I'm officially, kind of doing an off season and eating and resting. And I needed it. I did 12 shows in 4 years, and I feel like I've gone backwards since 2016. Obviously, from placing wise, I went from second in 16 at the Olympia to fourth in 17, and then fifth in 18. And I wasn't happy with my showings. And I've had some aches and pains and some bumps and bruises, as we get up there in age, and constantly competing and constantly training at a really, really high level. So I'm kind of giving my body a little rest, a little rehab. My biggest issue was my TFLs. I had a TFL pain. I told you off camera like last year. It's been like a year and a half. I mean, 2017 Olympia was bothering me, but 18 Arnold and Olympia, it was killing me. Basically, something mechanical was going on. It wasn't an injury. It was both TFLs on both sides. That's like, kind of below the hip, the glute medius wraps at the top of the IT band for the people that don't know what TFL is. And I couldn't even squat my own body weight. It hurt me getting in.
Wow.
Yeah, so I would basically do leg extensions, leg presses, and just push through the pain every workout it's been a long time now. And I just started 2 different forms of therapy. My physical therapist, Mike Camp, has this machine, NewFit machine. It's like almost like a stim machine. It basically, the muscles that aren't firing, it sends a signal to them, and then you work through exercises to get them more active. So my glutes weren't activating, and I think it was putting a lot of stress on that. And I'm doing acupuncture with the electric current. And between those two now for 2 weeks, I think it's working. I think I'm getting better.
You feel the relief? There's a little bit of...
I feel a little bit of relief. It's still very, very tender and sore. When you have a mechanical issue, it doesn't go away overnight. But I trained quads today, and I didn't go crazy all out heavy. I didn't squat. I haven't squatted in literally since Arnold prep. I forced my way squatting, But, I did the workout, and it wasn't excruciatingly painful like usual, so that tells me it's working.
How much longer do you suspect that this therapy will take before it'll...
As long as I can train quads the way that I did last week and today, and maybe not wait, I believe in very, very intense, really heavyweight, really intense, and then rest for 5 to 7 days. But if you're not lifting heavy, if you're not lifting super intense, I believe you can train much more often. Gymnasts train every muscle every day. They don't annihilate them like bodybuilders. Growing up, I trained like Dorian. I did max OT, HIIT training. So that, I believe, no, you shouldn't train a muscle twice a week. You shouldn't train it every 3-4 days. But if the intensity is a little bit lower, I can train more often. So I'll train my quads probably once every, depending on how it feels, 4 days, or get it in twice in 10 days, a little bit more frequently. So as long as I can train them like this, I believe that I can improve them. And then little by little, hopefully I'll be able to increase the intensity of training. But I think it'll take at least a month or two to really get back to like a nice flow or groove, because it's been bad. It's been really...
What do you think spurred it on? Just training or...
I think it's just we do certain things and we're built a certain way mechanically. I've always had exaggerated lordosis since I was a kid. And then all of a sudden, 2014, I turned pro, 16, 17, 18, classic physique. I put on a lot of muscle. I'm very top heavy. Just mechanically, maybe the way I'm walking, maybe the way that I was training, my glutes were not firing, I think. I didn't realize this at the time. We came to this conclusion with therapy now, putting myself through tests. And also I was noticing this past year, I always had really big glutes, and a lot of women always noticed that about me. And this year I was like, you know what? Like I've grown, I've gotten so much bigger, but like my glutes, I feel like I've atrophied. They're not as big. I noticed that in a few pictures.
I kind of feel like that too. I kind of feel like that happened to me over the years.
Yeah.
When I was younger, it was like I could activate those glutes. I could fire up those glutes.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, for whatever reasons, I think I may have something similar. Some of those areas are very tight for me as well, and they definitely impeded my ability to be able to fire those glute muscles off. I have to.
Well, I never, you know what it is? I never did glute exercises. Like you see everyone doing glute exercises. Now I'm doing it to activate my glutes. But even up until 2 weeks ago, I never did them before. I had big glutes from squatting, deadlifting, and just doing heavy, big movements. And I feel like as you get older, because of other aches or pains and injuries, and you start training smarter, you stop doing those. So if you're not doing, maybe heavy lunges, heavy squats, even deadlifts to a certain degree will target the glutes and hams. So when you kind of pull away from those, you got to do glute work. If not, you're gonna atrophy. That's what I think.
No, I think the same thing. I think there's also something that there's some nerve issues, innovation issues, and different things of that nature that kind of happens with age as we get older. We just have to. There's a lot more effort that's involved to be able to fire off muscles at the same capacity, I think.
Things change when you get older. The muscle, your body changes year to year. The same thing that you were able to do last year, not able to do this year. As you get older, I'm nowhere near, the age that I'm talking about, but it's harder to build, I believe, muscle, but it's much harder to build your lower body. You'll see some of the older bodybuilders, like Dexter, for instance, he looks phenomenal still, but you kind of see like a change the last couple of years in his legs and his lower body. And I don't think you're going to be really putting on slabs of muscle and density in your lower body when you're, at the end of your career or you're a little bit older. For different people is a different age, but we're talking like in the 40s, right?
Right. Well, I agree. I know that for me, once I hit over 40, it was much more difficult to continually put muscle on any parts of my body. But especially my legs, and I always chalked it up to, and I've talked to other bodybuilders and people who are similar age, kind of get some similar stories. I think a lot of it has to do with this. I think there's something to be said for like how our nerves, as we age, they just don't recruit the same amount of fiber when they fire off. You have to really put more energy into it. You got to really put more concentration and focus on it. I have to focus so much more to get the same. I mean, I remember, gosh, when I was in my 20s, I could just like touch my back and it would just like blow up and I'd be tight and and now it takes me so much more effort to get that same level of pump, the same level of fatigue, the same level of exertion.
I agree. I think a lot changes as you age. I mean, your car's suspension, your car's steering, and your car's brakes and tires aren't the same when it's 5, 10, 15 years old. They tarnish, so I think that it's a good analogy to be used. It's similar to us. And also the way that we break down and utilize nutrients changes when we get older. A lot of older guys that I know that compete, they do high fat, low carb. They don't break down and utilize carbohydrates as well in an older age, So, you got to evolve. If you want to last long in this game, you got to evolve.
That's right. That's exactly right. I think what would be one of the tips that you would give people about aging over, like bodybuilding over 40 per se? Like, even though
I think
I think that's where the line is. I think that's kind of where the line is, right?
Yeah, I think it gets
things
it depends. It depends. I think genetics and also when you started. Right. So like I consider myself still young, but the thing is I'm older than a lot of the guys I compete against. Except for the Mr. Olympia, we're about the same age, Breon, which I commend him on that. But,
how old is he?
We're both 38, I think.
Oh, okay.
I'm 38. I think he's the same age. But everybody else in that top 5 is considerably younger than us. So that means we have muscle maturity. I'm sure he's been training a long time. I don't know if it's as long as I have been. But, yes, you have muscle maturity on your side, but you also will have a little bit more aches and pains, So, like, when I look back at the Dorians and the Ronnies and the Jay Cutlers, and even Arnold, like when they were at the top of their game, how old were they? Right. They were young. They were very young, late 20s, early 30s. So that's something to consider,
Absolutely.
But I try not to think about it too much.
I don't know. There's especially with like Dexter and like there's several other bodybuilders now and people we're finding, I think, that that each person, we get to decide sometimes to a certain degree that longevity in our sport. You know what I mean? Like, is it gonna? I think most people are like, I feel very fortunate for myself. Like, my body is held up really well. I don't have any major injuries, and I maintain where I want to maintain. That's one of the things I felt like that age, because I started when I was 15, but so 34 years into it, and I feel like it's so much easier for me to maintain where I'm at than it was for me to build it, for sure.
I think you approach it more of a health aspect. Like, okay, we all know you need to lift heavy, and you need to eat a lot of protein, and you need to eat a lot of food to grow. Okay, so if you're asking me over 40 or a little bit older, even the younger guys should be practicing this. Okay, well, the sources, the food that we're eating, like, are vegans right about what they say about meat? Yes, not necessarily about just animals. It's not good to eat animals, but it's not good to eat such toxic meat come from bad farms and slaughterhouses. So if you're eating 3-4 pounds of chicken, eggs, it makes a big difference if this stuff is toxic or not. So you should look at it more of a health aspect going forward. And then also with the training, you want to go in there and train like an animal, but you want to warm up. You want to train smart. And if you guys see people in the gym doing like rehabilitation because they injured themselves, well, if we did the rehabilitation exercises for the rotator cuff that people do once they're injured, if we did that prior to injury, it wouldn't be called rehab. It would be called injury prevention. Right. So the rotator cuff, contrary to a lot of people that will be watching this, contrary to common belief, it's not a tendon or ligament, it's a muscle. So if you strengthen the rotator cuff via rehabilitation exercises, you're going to be less likely to get injured, and you're going to have more power in your presses. So like little things like this are, really would have helped us, knowing that 15, 20 years ago.
I remember I stopped doing pressing movements, heavy pressing movements like bench press, early on in my mid-20s because of this issue, because I saw my friends who were older than me, they were so crippled. They were like their rotators were bothering them. They couldn't bench heavy. They couldn't bench at all. Sometimes it would bother them. And then I remember coming off the chest day. It was the chest days when I was 20-something years old, and I had gotten up to working out with over 500 pounds, and I was pretty impressed with myself. And I remember coming off that workout, and my shoulders didn't feel right. Like, it didn't feel right, not muscularly, but somewhere in the joint. Like, I could tell I had my frame is not a super big frame, and my bones and my tendons and my ligaments probably were at their limits or close to it that day. And I thought to myself, man, I'm 26 and I feel like this. What am I going to feel like when I'm 36 or 46 or 56? Like, I felt like if I kept going down this road of heavy pressing, then I was just going to be in for some injury. So I stopped doing heavy flat presses and stuck with mostly some other bodybuilding type of movements and isolation movements. And I kind of continued that from my mid to late 30s or late 20s till now, that I pretty much don't try to go too heavy anymore.
Well, there's a few things that people have to understand. One, we're built differently. Some people are just built stronger. Ronnie's a big guy. Yeah. Genetically, naturally, he's a big guy, not only muscular, but joint, ligament, tendon-wise. I bet you he has some of the strongest joints, ligaments, and tendons on the planet Earth. That's just genetically. So some people are just built a lot stronger. And two, it depends of, how long you're doing something for, but the understanding that our bodies don't want to be massive, right, strong, and lean. Our bodies want to kind of be chubby and be efficient and live and survive long. But being massive slabs of muscle and really low body fat is not something that's natural to any human being.
Damn, I gotta write God a letter, man. Shit.
We're basically manipulating our body to do something it doesn't want to do.
I can remember looking at growing up. I was always fascinated with animals in nature, right? And they have you go look at a gorilla, like a silverback gorilla. Like, they're massive and they're lean. You can actually see them, even through their hair. You can see they're lean, and they eat whatever the fuck they want. They eat when they want. They eat whatever it is that's available, and they somehow can get really powerful off of eating leaves and twigs and fruit and shit. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. What was it?
If we walked everywhere and didn't have devices and didn't have cars and had to build everything by hand and climb everywhere to get our food, then we'd be much bigger and much bigger as well.
It's kind of funny. I was watching a show that were talking about these evolutionary things, and the way I see it, we're the only species that evolves at will. Like, we choose our evolutionary path. We make choices. We don't just respond to our environment. We actually make choices. Like you and I made the choice to build our bodies. So we are actually consciously evolving our physique right before our eyes. But by selecting and turning on certain genes, by how we train, by how we think, by what we eat, and all that good stuff. And so, but animals don't really get to do this. They respond to their environments, and their traits evolve based on that. And I always thought it was pretty fascinating that nature takes this course. But what was interesting, because it's kind of funny you mentioned that. Like in human history, what made us really, really uniquely sort of what made us unique in our sort of evolution is that when we came out of the trees, we were hominids came out of the trees and really walking upright for the first time in this form that we see ourselves today. The biggest innovation, I didn't know this till I did some research on this. The biggest innovation was being able to throw laterally. So, and what this does is, like, you don't even think about this stuff, and I find this stuff to be immensely fascinating. So you don't think, like, why is this important? Well, if we're hunting out there in the savannah, right, and who is at the top of that food chain? Well, it's not us, right? It's going to be lions, tigers, like stuff like that, right? And we're going to be competing for resources, for their resources, the gazelles, the stuff like that. We want to eat like an elephant or a gazelle or something. We're going to be competing with those guys, and the problem is that we can't. Like, physically, we can't. Like, we don't have much to compete with. But as soon as we came out of the trees, this was interesting. We see in all the research, they show that the physique changes. Like, our chest broadens out, our shoulders widen out, and now we're able to do lateral. We can make lateral movements with our arms. Whereas when we were in the trees, like monkeys, if you watch a monkey, when they go and they throw a rock, this is what they do. They grab the rock with two hands, they put it over their head, and they go like this. And they try to like that. They don't throw like this. They can't. Their joint sockets don't work like that. So they can't really. So what that does is it makes them really shitty throwers. Like, they're really shitty at throwing rocks. Like, but there was a case when, and I can't remember what year it was, like 1600 something, when the Spaniards came over to the South America somewhere, and they were pelted by the natives, but with rocks, and this was an army with like armor and like fucking guns and shit, and they were pelted and they decimated them. And it's because when you really think about it, like, if you can get a guy on a pitcher's mound throwing a fastball at 90 miles an hour, it didn't take too long for us to figure out how to do that. We could figure out how to throw a rock pretty deadly. It could be pretty deadly if you really want.
Why did we learn the dumbbell fly?
Exactly.
I guess you're not going to see any chimpanzees going dumbbell fly.
But it was really interesting to hear this researcher talk about this. He wrote a book about it, and he said that when we came out of the trees and get this lateral movement, and all of a sudden, what made us sort of climb on top of the food chain and take over was this notion of what's called endurance hunting, which is something that no other animal does but us. So what we do is what we ended up doing was, because gazelles and lions, when you go and see a lion or a tiger chase down something in the savannah, you got about 14-15 minutes. That's it. After that, he's done. He's pooped. He can't run. He doesn't have the stamina. He's going to overheat. His system overheats because he doesn't have sweat glands. He pants. So he's got about 15 minutes, and then that's it. He's done. He can't run after him anymore. But when we came out of the trees, we lost our hair, and guess what we gained? We gained sweat glands, and we were able to sweat. And so now we can run long distances and cool ourselves at the same time, whereas dogs and other animals can't do this. And so and I saw this really cool special where they showed this in Africa. They had these researchers, and they basically hunted down this gazelle and chased it for 3 hours, and they just jogged, and they said just chased him, kept him moving for 3 hours, and then finally he just stopped and gave up, and they walked right up to it and threw a spear right in him. He was dead. And that's called endurance hunting. Once we figured that piece out, we became masters of the savannah, and then we're able to feed. This is the interesting part. Feed our brain. Because our brains are required, because once we became hominids, our brains required like 30-something% of our daily metabolic energy. And so this is a big deal. Like when you're out there, like you said, when you're out there hunting and gathering shit, it's a big deal when you have that kind of demand. And so once we were able to feed that demand on a regular basis, our brains really started to grow. And that's what always makes me always interested in human behavior and human development, because we're still in that evolutionary process, right? We just take for granted that our brains are so damn big that we can feed it. Speaking of which, I've been doing lots of research. I know you're interested in this stuff. Doing lots of research on going to Peru, maybe even doing like a ayahuasca journey. And psilocybin and DMT, all these things, these components. I've been doing lots of research, and there's really some fascinating stuff going on out there. And there's a lot of, I guess I came across somebody who has, like, there's a church of some sort. You can partake in a journey, in an ayahuasca journey in the United States if you're a part of if it's part of a religious perspective, I guess. Otherwise you got to go to another country. Although
they have them in the U.S., but they're technically, there's some, people have to find loopholes. It's technically not legal.
Oh, okay. Because it was, I had somebody told me about it that he had done one. He had done one with this shaman, and he had to get a card that shows he's a part of the kind of like what you used to get in California for for weed. But now I guess you can. I guess it's relatively easy to do it, but I'm still looking into it. But I'm really kind of excited because I think I really find it interesting. All the mind expansion stuff. I'm really starting to see why the people of the 60s, like all the hippies and stuff, like why they called this stuff mind expansion. I have a sneaky suspicion that ayahuasca, DMT, psilocybin, all these things, when they excite, when you get an increase in dimethyltryptamine in your brain, then I think what happens is it's stripping away your ability to recognize or to see the world the way that we're seeing it. Does that make sense? Our sense of consciousness. That's the part that I find most interesting. I don't know if how much research you've done on it or not.
Well, I completely agree on it. What I find most fascinating and kind of funny is how people will look at this type of stuff and say, "Oh, it's crazy," or "It's for hippies," or they'll say, "Oh, it's drugs," or this or that. When so many people spend so much time, energy, and money on aspects of their looks or their lives that does nothing for them. And there's people out there saying, "Hey, listen, I tried this, for people that are listening, don't know what ayahuasca is, this natural plant that's hallucinogenic, has a lot of spiritual ties to it." And people are saying, "Hey, I tried this and it changed my life." And you still have so many people being closed-minded. I haven't gotten a chance to do it. I wanted to do it last year. I know of a few places here, like on the East Coast in the U.S., that we can do it. It's just finding the right time to do it. Like there was one ceremony that came up, but I was like a few weeks out of the Olympia. So it's time you want to do where you can do a specific diet and you cleanse your body a few days before. And of course, you want to do it in a group with a shaman that's well versed in this. And you go through a very spiritual and emotional experience. I mean, I've done Anthony Robbins seminars. I've done Landmark. Landmark is said to be like 20 years of therapy in a weekend,
Yeah, somebody else I knew did this. They said they really liked it.
Yeah, Landmark is in the same family. I'm sure if you heard like the 60s and 70s, they had something called S. There's these kind of these educations that are basically speeding up the process of different forms of therapy. And instead of sitting there and talking to a therapist for 20 years and complaining about your mom or dad or what happened to you when you were a kid, it's like, you know what? Whatever happened, however bad, however awful, just let it go. Understand that it doesn't make you and let it go and move on. But I think, we're only capable consciously of seeing so many things, making so many decisions, and unraveling a lot of things within us. We can't. It's very deep, and most people don't have the conscious ability, conscious strength to dig into their memory like their own psychologist and pull certain things out. We're really good at burying things, and we're really good at telling ourselves, "Oh, I'm not a good public speaker." Whereas that's not the case. It's just when you're in kindergarten, you raise your hand, and everyone laughed at you because you had the wrong answer. So we do that. And things like ayahuasca and DMT will allow you to tap into certain things, see things clearly, and open different gateways, different doors, so to speak, in your mind. That's what I've gathered without experiencing it firsthand myself.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've sort of pieced together from other people. I've had some friends that have done it. I haven't had anybody come back and say they had a bad experience. They've all said that it was life-changing in good ways, and helped them understand themselves more. And I'm all in this. Like, I think this life is, if there's one thing I think that is critical in this life, and that is to understand yourself. If all you do your whole life is seek higher levels of understanding oneself, I don't think it's a wasted life. I think you'll do well for yourself. Most people walk through life, I think, with some assumptions about who they are and about what's going on that aren't always serving them. And that's, I think, what kind of stands in the way. And I think that some of this stuff, I don't know about Landmark, but I know that it sounds really similar to like NLP, or these kinds of modalities where they really look at tapping into the subconscious and releasing yourself of unprocessed emotions or poorly processed emotions. Like, you're right, like a lot of things. It's kind of funny that we could each live with some of the baggage that we carry around with us that isn't serving us so well. Maybe it's the belief that we can't make any money, or maybe it's the belief that you can't succeed at something or be a good public speaker or whatever it is. But a lot of times, I think much of this is just the way these unprocessed emotions. Our brains had to come up with a way to figure out how to relate this to our life, right? Like how to make it real for us, or make it usable for us and protect us. And so sometimes we come up with some things that don't always serve us so well.
Yeah.
I was really shy, when I was in school, because I thought that the teachers gave good grades to the kids that they liked.
Oh, not exactly false, but
well, I was under that impression because I was working really hard, and I didn't realize I had like a vision problem and a hearing problem. I couldn't hear the teacher very good, couldn't see the board very good. So, in my case, it was because I just wasn't seeing the world or hearing the world the same way. So I was kind of interested. I remember I was talking, and I'm going to have Dorian Yates on my show here in a couple more episodes. But he's I guess he has a retreat. It's like 5 or 6 days or something like that, like a week, and you go on like 3 different journeys. Ayahuasca. He's really in love with this stuff. I can't wait to talk to him about it because I'm interested.
I saw the flyer for it. When you speak to him, let me know when the dates are. I'll go through it.
It's in June. Like, it's in June. Like, that's the one.
Terrible time for.
And I was like, wouldn't that be like right when Olympia prep starts or something?
When you talk to him, he probably doesn't even know who I am, but tell him I'm a huge fan of his and I want to do the ayahuasca. We'll do it. Okay, yeah. Well, what I'd like to do is bring a group of small friends like yourself and maybe 1 or 2 other people and do a journey like that, like do an experience like that in a group of loving people who support each other. And you know what I mean? Like, I want it to be a good experience for everybody, and I want to get something valuable out of it. And I think to me it sounds pretty exciting. I don't like the idea of throwing up. Like, I heard that there's a purge. Like, I don't know. Like, I know you talk about cleansing your body, but it's supposed to do that kind of for you, right? What I've heard is that the real hardcore, genuine strand, yes, you can throw up and you can be on the toilet too. And Dorian will tell you he was on the toilet while throwing up. Oh, was it Dorian or someone else? Dorian definitely did get sick, but someone else also told me that. Then there's some other strands, or I don't know how it works, but that you won't get sick. But some people say no, getting sick is getting the toxins and the evil and the negativity and all that.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to deal with a little bit of evil.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
Who knows?
It's part of the process. You gotta do.
Yeah, I haven't in my life. I haven't thrown up very much. It's always one of those things that, you know.
Me too. I avoid it. I hate throwing up.
I don't know why. It's like
I'll hold it in and have a stomach ache for like 12 minutes. Yeah. I like yakking, and then when I do, it's the most violent thing ever.
It hurts, man. Terrible. It hurts.
Yeah, I see some people like professionals, like, oh, I don't feel too good. Let me just throw up real quick. And then
I'm like, no, not me either, man. Sorry. Once that stuff goes in, I feel like I'm pulling stuff when but yeah, no. So it's and I guess it's very similar kinds of experiences with psychedelic mushrooms, and I've heard some really interesting things. Like in Oregon, they might be making them legal. Hopefully, they're close to it. which is good. And the reason why I say that is because I want there to be more research done with psilocybin. And
what people have to understand is, like, anyone listening that's thinking like, oh, this is just like a hippie's excuse to do drugs. You guys Google microdosing.
Right.
The big difference between taking a handful of mushrooms, LSD, DMT, ayahuasca, and just getting so mangled where you don't remember anything. There's a lot of brilliant people out there, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of big thinkers and creators and artists that are microdosing with LSD, with marijuana, with mushrooms, and they're finding a lot of benefits. Now, what is microdosing? It's a micro dose. Like if you're going to take, let's say a whole, I don't know how it would work. I've never done LSD, but a whole tab of LSD, microdosing with it, you would take 1/10 of a tab. So you're not going to be tripping and seeing butterflies on your walls, but you're going to get some benefits from it, some creativity. And it is proven that, they've done CAT scan and there's certain areas of the brains that light up and become active that are not normally as active and lit up and tapped into. So there's a lot of benefits to it, but it's a tough topic to speak to a lot of people. Like when you speak to someone like me or you or Dorian are on the same wavelength, it's cool. But like a lot of your viewers are just like, oh, these guys are,
Well, I think I kind of have a sneaky suspicion that there are some things changing. I think there is a lot of stigma, like negative stigma associated with, just associated with like cannabis or with mushrooms or with Indian psychedelics and all those things. And I think it's because of when it like in the 60s when it became popular amongst the hippies and stuff like that. It kind of, when you first people get into doing things can get out of hand or be done for the wrong reasons or just not with the right modality. There was no research really being done. They were starting to do research. And then when people started when there was fear, I think associated with it, then you get all of the things that I ever heard or read about cannabis or about LSD or about all these other, they're all wrong. Like there's no, they were just sort of scare tactics. And we still sort of suffer from some of that, I think, in today. Like people will tell you, well, if you ask them, why don't you, what's wrong with cannabis or what's wrong with psilocybin or DMT or ayahuasca or any of these things that we're talking about, and they won't really even know. They know that all they know is what they feel. They're like, oh no, that's bad. It's bad. People jump off of buildings for that stuff. Like,
yeah, but alcohol is totally fine.
Exactly.
No one dies from drinking alcohol. It's safe.
Exactly. So I think it's just that I had that same kind of roadblock in my own mind with cannabis. I mean, years ago, I never smoked or anything until I was almost 40 for the first time. And I remember it was because my ex-wife did this research in her master's program as a nurse practitioner on medicinal marijuana. And everything that she came up with that she showed me was in direct conflict with things that I had learned that I thought that were true about it. And so it really opened my eyes and began my sort of process of me doing my own research and finding out my own information and really looking at what the hard science of it is. And it turns out that most of the things that I'd ever read about, like marijuana, was totally wrong. Yeah. And then of course it encouraged me to really sort of do the same thing with things like DMT or psilocybin or mushrooms, LSD, those kinds of things. They were all, I remember, like most of those things were all really touted in the late 50s, early 60s as exciting stuff to be able to get for psychiatric patients and stuff. They thought that was really going to revolutionize.
Yeah.
But it turns out with all the drug craze that hit the country, I think it kind of squashed that for a little while. And now we're just now starting to really look at some of this stuff in a scientific way again. And I think we're going to get past all that stuff. I think we are, because I've always wondered, here's a question that I always wondered, why does my government or anybody else for that matter care so much about what I put in my body? Like, I have yet to figure out why. Like, some people say, oh, it's bad for you. Well, why do they don't care how bad things are for me.
I don't know how to answer this because, there's I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but clearly they don't, because if they did, all that junk wouldn't be on the shelves in supermarkets, right? Because that's going to give you diabetes and Alzheimer's and high blood pressure, all that shit. So they don't. But, if something is going to benefit you to the point of giving you enlightenment, do you think, listen, I'll put it this way. If you and I we're going to control all the people in our town, for instance. Is it easier to control them, have control over them, their lives, financially, everything, just the way that they run their lives and what they do day to day? Is it easier to control them if they're very intelligent, in-tuned, healthy individuals, or if they're very uneducated, simple-minded, not reading, not really sharp, unhealthy people? Which would be easier to control?
Of course, man. Like you want
Stop there, and I won't answer your question.
Yeah, you want the brainless ones. You want the people that are willing to take things at face value. That
Seriously, we're 2018. We've been in outer space, and we're supposedly so civilized, and so we're getting more and more technologically advanced. But like, look at people nowadays.
Oh, I know.
People don't. Anywhere you go, people sitting there staring at their phones. They don't have patience. Everything is instant gratification. Swipe and like and move on. And people are spending hours upon hours upon hours on their cell phones, playing games on social media. So, there's a lack of people communicating with each other, talking with each other. People don't write letters anymore. People don't read books really anymore. I don't think people are getting smarter by any. I think the small percentage of physicists and scientists and maybe the leaders of the world are, but the vast majority, I think, it'd be interesting. I'm sure there's a study done. I think the intellect and IQ is lower now.
Well, definitely our attention span is decreasing. That they have tested that. I do know that it's like 6 or 7 seconds now. It's pretty short. But I think you're right. I think that between technology, cell phones, you name it, all these different ways in which we interact with our world, it's making it easier and easier in some when you look from one perspective, it makes it easier not to engage it in just a certain kind of way, right? And that way, I'm not a conspiracy theorist either, but I would say that, man, it sure builds a good case to say that you really want a bunch of mindless sort of automatons. You want a bunch of sheep, you want a bunch of followers, you want a bunch of people who are willing to accept some quote unquote truth as fact without justification.
The vast majority of 16 to 30-year-olds, what's their focus on? Is their focus on becoming more emotionally and intellectually vast and reading and learning? No, it's on their clothes and the way that they are seen aesthetically by others and trying to look like Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. The fact that you know those people's names, I think, is an issue. Some of the most popular people on the planet Earth, what have they done? Why do we know their names?
Right.
No, seriously, what have they done? They've accomplished.
They've done really well at doing nothing.
Marketing. You're really good at marketing.
Yeah.
It's awesome that we have platforms like Instagram where you don't have to be a celebrity or a politician or something, and you can be heard. And if you're entertaining or you market yourself well, you can make something of it. That's great. But like, there's people just like there's an Instagram page of a guy just farting.
What?
Just various farts. There's an Instagram of some kid that just is really skinny, so he's popular. He's millions of viewers because he has a long neck. Like, it's ridiculous. The people that we're putting on pedestals and in the limelight and in the spotlight in our society. So what do you expect? Why are people so surprised when you have kids in middle school or elementary school doing stupid stuff and hurting each other and why are you surprised? As long as you make it okay for the older people to do these XYZ in society, and you praise these people in society that really aren't teaching or doing anything commendable, that's what's going to keep happening. It's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse.
Unfortunately, yeah, I think you're probably right. It is a little frustrating because sometimes as far as we've come, doesn't it? It seems like sometimes in some ways we've gone backwards. It can seem that way.
Absolutely.
Technology, we've gone so far ahead, farther than what I would have imagined in such a short period of time. Just from I remember not having cell phones and stuff, of course, and then now, of course, everyone's got cell phones. As a matter of fact, I was watching a interesting take on cell phones that you can. The one way to look at our cell phone is that we are already becoming like
cybernetic, if you will. Like that's AI. That's artificial intelligence.
And your phone is. Yeah, the phone is now just another extension of who we.
The fact that people call it a cell phone, they're kind of like, that's not a cell phone. The most simple thing that it does is makes a call. It's AI.
Most people don't even use that piece, that functionality.
That thing is documenting everything you do, everywhere you go. It's listening to you. You can speak to it, and it speaks back to you. The last thing that thing is a cell phone.
Right, I know it's and it's a piece. You're right, absolutely. It's what I was leading to. Is it's this piece of technology that really is a part of us now. It's just like and I think it would scare people if they knew how much AI was really out there, what is really controlling, and how far we are along this trajectory of really developing like a system that can be pretty that could change the world, if you will. That could literally change it in ways like I keep thinking of the movie Terminator. Like there's some real discussions about stuff like this. It's really interesting, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but I do believe that we have at times gotten ourselves a little farther along the trail than without thinking about it. Just because we can do something, I don't know if it means we should do it. So like we probably should exercise some caution. Although I am excited about AI. I actually like people like Elon Musk and stuff. I think he's an interesting person, and he's talked a bit about this. He actually, I think, spoke against AI, and now he's as this sort of doomsday call of sorts. I think, but I think he sort of reversed his position a little bit now. But I heard he's building like some kind of big underground tunnel under LA. Have you heard about this?
The Big Bang?
No, he's building like a big tunnel to help with traffic flow. And yeah. And he's doing it all on his own dime. And the city of Los Angeles, I think, gave him permission to do it. Of course, they gave permission. He's paying for it. I think, and he's just doing it.
I wonder how that works with earthquakes, because the Earth is moving there all the time.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't even know if it's under those. I'm sure he had to do it in special areas. I don't know, but it was just kind of interesting. But a person like him who really he's talked about this kind of stuff, and I thought it was interesting to think of my cell phone as another piece of technology that just like a part of my body, because that's really what it is. Like you said, it's recording everything. And pretty soon, like how far does the average person go? How far away from their phone do they really go in any given day? I was thinking about this, like I don't stay more than a couple of feet from my phone all day long.
I had a friend that would be on his phone a lot, and a few times when we'd be hanging out, we were going to go down the block to get something to eat or go to the grocery store. But you know what? Let's leave our phones. And you didn't want to leave it, So
it's like
no, you really wouldn't. So sometimes when I leave the house and I know I'm not going to be gone for too long, more than an hour or something, I'll just leave my phone behind. Or even in the car. I think people should practice that. Like if it's the last thing you're touching and the first thing you're touching when you wake up in the morning, I mean, that's got a grip on you, right? It's kind of controlling you to a certain extent, And when you're talking about AI and all this technology, is it better that humanity's reach is going further technologically? Okay, sure, yeah, in a lot of ways. But that doesn't mean it's good for us, for each individual, for every single person. Maybe there's some people that have control over it. Elon Musk, he's a creator of it. He sees things differently. But for the vast majority of people, no, in my eyes, it's just a tool. It's just a device that's controlling them, keeping tabs on them, controlling them, and making them, what'd you say? Attention span is less. Right. They're less likely to spend their time doing other things. Listen, I mean, we laugh about this and there's jokes about this on Instagram, but it's kind of sickening. If you just go anywhere, go to a mall, it's not kids anymore. It's right. Everyone. If you're walking in the city, or I lived in Brooklyn for a few years, people are looking down at their phones. They slam into you. Everyone just kind of like in their own little bubble. In the gym, I got guys on Instagram, guys in the gym coming up to me all the time. Hey, how do I get bigger? How do I get a big chest? How do I do this? Put your phone away. I promise you'll get bigger if you put your phone away. I promise you. You have to understand, when you're all in on something, when you're doing something intensely, passionately, you can't be in bed with your girl and then like take a break and eat a sandwich, take a break and talk to someone. You can't be in the middle of a football game and then be like, time out to talk to your mom on the phone. When you're doing something very passionate, very intense, you're in that thing. So if you're training and you're trying to get bigger and jacked and you're training for a show, and then when you put the weight down and you're resting, which is a meditative state, you're getting ready for the next set, you're planning what you're going to do for the next couple minutes. If you just totally change your vibration, totally change your frame of mind and your intensity, and you go to your cell phone, or you start joking. How do you expect to joke with a guy and kid and talk and the guy next to you bullshit and everything, and then all of a sudden put up a PR? No, the guys that are putting up PRs, the guys that are making changes in the gym and training intensity, they're in a zone. And even between sets, like sometimes I'll see people like looking, waiting for me to put the weight down to come over and talk. And it's like that rest period is a meditative state. It's literally planned for the next set. It doesn't mean I can just go and like go skip outside and eat a cupcake and come. You know what I mean?
Yep, I know.
So if you look around in gyms, everyone's on that phone, and they're like, "How come I'm not getting results?"
Kind of funny.
You're not there. They're not there.
You're only partly there. You got to be 100% all in.
I use the term for years. I've been saying more harm than good. I want to make T-shirts that say this. I believe 90% of people in gyms are doing more harm than good. Save your money, go home, read a book, or spend time with your family. You're better off. Like I see people waking up, coming to the gym 5 a.m, and they're not even really doing anything. They're on their phones, they're not paying attention, whatever. They're doing more harm than good. They probably end up hurting themselves and get an injury, and they're not really reaching their goals. So just go home and spend time with your family.
Yeah, well, I think it's true. I think that a lot of people, as a fact, I was, Jay Cutler and I were talking about this exact same thing, and he said, today, and we were talking about it in reference to the athletes today, and maybe you have a perspective on this, you kind of have to be so present in the social media space, especially when you're a pro, especially when you're, one of the top guys. You kind of have to, you really do sort of have to make your presence known to stay relevant. And so we were joking around that, it wasn't like it was when he and I started, or when you used to, you didn't have this distraction, this little piece of distraction, this little piece of technology that we're all tied to. And so now that we are, I find myself like looking at my news feed as well when I'm working out. I try not to, but he and I talked about this as well. He said he finds himself doing the same thing, even though before he would have never done that. Because So
what I say to people, put your phone away. Like I have my phone because I used it for SoundCloud and Pandora. So what I did was either get an iPod, or what I have is I have my old cell phone. So it looks like I'm holding my cell phone, but it's just my music. So, and if I'm going to document a workout or take pictures, I have to have someone doing that for me. I'm not good at stopping, setting up the camera. I don't agree with that. Okay, as a professional bodybuilder, I agree. You should be using social media as a platform to market yourself and build your brand. You're training for 1 hour.
Right.
You're training for 2 hours, let's say. That's it. So market yourself for the other 22 hours of the day. You know what I mean? And if you really need to get footage in the gym, you need to get a friend or a younger brother, sister, cousin, or hire someone to film you. You can't be doing that shit.
Do you is that what you do? You take a second person in to help you with some of that stuff?
That's something I need to do. I have videographers here and there that I'll do vlogs or workout videos for YouTube, but I'd like to be putting up clips of my working out every single day, but I train alone. And I do what I'm saying to you guys, because if I didn't, then you'd see clips of me every single day in the gym. I'd set up the camera on a tripod, but it's too much work. Yeah. I took a camera once to the gym on a small tripod on this thing, actually, like something like this.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And it was way too much work, man, because you'd set it up and then you'd have to check and make sure it's okay. And your focus is elsewhere. I challenge anyone that thinks they can handle it. Just go YouTube, Blood and Guts, Dorian Yates, and watch that. And then you'll understand what I mean by intensity. Most people don't have it in them to train at the intensity that I'm speaking of. Right. Most people don't have the mental capacity. Most pro bodybuilders don't have the mental capacity to train like Dorian did in Blood and Guts. That's something very special. I mean, he gave all out 1,000% effort for each given set. And he claimed to train so little volume, so little few days. That's why.
Yeah, we were, when I, on my last radio show, when I had him on, we talked about that training series. It's still a very popular training series because it's so real. And he said that he remembered when they were inspired to start to record it, they were spraying him up and with fake sweat, and he's like, fuck this. He's like, I don't want, this is bullshit. He's like, we're not gonna do it this way. He said, just put all that shit away. We're gonna do real workouts. And so that whole series is real workouts, right? Like those were his real workouts. He said it was real sweat, it was real reps, all that was exactly the way that I had planned to do it when I went in the gym. And that he wanted to feel something real, and I think that comes across in those video series. You can see that.
People don't understand when they see that video. They're thinking, "Wow, look how strong he is! Wow, what was he eating? Wow, what did he weigh?" What they're not understanding, which is something very obvious to me, is that it was a meditative state.
Yeah.
There was no one else in that video. If anyone noticed that, the gym was closed. He would go there before they opened Temple Gym. There was no cell phone. There was no distraction. He would pace back and forth, and he would get mentally ready to do that next set. It wasn't a physical thing. Dorian, I don't believe Dorian was this gift genetically. Of course, anybody that's able to get to that level of bodybuilding has great genetics. But I watched Dorian's whole career. I followed him when I was younger. I studied Blood and Guts. I saw his pictures when he was a teenager. He's no Flex Wheeler, Ronnie Coleman genetically, in my opinion. So how did he get where he got?
Up here is right. Exactly. Absolutely. I believe that.
Plain and simple. There was no magic diet. There was no magic supplement. It was a mental state that allowed him to do that with his physical body.
I believe that we, just like I talked about earlier, us evolving consciously, we do this, and the way that we know now with the arena of brain plasticity and epigenetics, we know like what we think about influences how our genes are activated. So I'm a big believer that when you have a strong belief and a strong intention and desire and a belief that surrounds it, that supports it, like becoming Mr. Olympia or like doing something else, then you increase your chances. You do the most that you can to help you bring all those things to fruition. By through belief. It's a vibrational, it's an energetic thing, but it also is something that we control 100% of the time by how we talk to ourselves, by what messages we allow in. And so when you talk about getting in a meditative state, I absolutely agree that the form that I remember when I would work out when I was in my 20s, it was very different than today. Like it was a lot more intense. And today I work out for my health, for longevity, but also just to maintain my physique. I don't have the same the same energy isn't there. I don't know if I could do that, have that same level of energy that I had before, emotional energy. Maybe my goals have changed, but I remember being in those kinds of every workout. It was like it was a time where I was highly focused, where nothing else. I mean, I don't even think for a long time I didn't even like talking to anybody when I worked out. I just wanted to just train, and I train by myself now today too. I actually like it better when I train by myself. I don't know about you. What do you? I've
been training by myself for almost 10 years, but lately I need to find a training partner to videotape me. No. I train. I think I need to train with someone to push myself. Even if they don't push me, even if it's someone younger and inexperienced, I think I'll push myself harder. But look, here's the deal. So what happens is we start believing shit. So as we age, as we get a little injury, as we start believing, oh, I'm getting older. Oh, my genetics are whatever the fuck, you believe is what you're going to produce. And this has been happening with me. I've been bodybuilding for 25 years now. It sounds crazy when I say that. I started when I was 13. I was a full-blown miniature bodybuilder, not competitive at 16. Everything was developed. I was small, but I was training 6 days a week. I was eating 6 meals a day. I was carrying a gallon of water in high school. My teachers and friends were like, "What are you carrying a gallon of water for?" So I didn't compete till I was 34. I turned pro at 34, started classic physique at 36. But the first 20 years before ever competing, I felt magnificent. I had no stress. I wasn't worrying. Every day was a record-breaking workout. I told myself I was growing with every meal. I was getting bigger. I was watching Dorian and Ronnie and living the whole bodybuilding lifestyle, stress-free, having a blast, and really, there's be some days where I'm like, do I have the genetics, or be a little down? But most of the time, I was very positive. Now you fast forward, I'm a professional bodybuilder. At Classic Physique, I'm fighting to be number one. I'm fighting the top 5 in the world for 3 years consecutively. It's stress. You start thinking, do I have the genetics? Why is my stomach, is my waist getting bigger? Are my legs big enough? And this and that. And whatever you tell yourself, you start believing. So if I truly believe in bodybuilding, ignorance is bliss. We were talking earlier, and I wanted to say, like, being as intellectual as you and I are with bodybuilding, I don't think that's going to help us be better bodybuilders. We can talk and say, yeah, if I knew all this knowledge when I was younger, okay. Did Flex Wheeler have this knowledge? Did Ronnie? Would you consider Flex Wheeler and Ronnie in their prime back then? Not now. Very, very smart bodybuilders. Are they the Ben Pakulskis, the Evan Centopanis, the John Meadows of bodybuilding? No. I don't think they knew that much, much as we do, as much as a lot of bodybuilders they do. What was it? Their genetic anomalies, 1. 2, they just had faith and they worked their ass off. Yeah. They didn't question. People till today ask me if Ronnie took a secret drug, if Ronnie had something that other people didn't have. Yeah, he did. You want to know what it was? Ronnie had sickening work ethic, but he was never hard or negative on himself. He lost for over a decade and no one knew his name, but he was just like having fun with it. He just loved it and he was positive. And even now, when you watch The King on Netflix by Generation Iron, where he can't walk, there's not 1 second in the video where he looks down and says, this is really tough. No, he tells you that the doctors tell him he can't walk again, and then he giggles. So that's that. Yeah, Ronnie had great genetics. Yes, absolutely. But there's a lot of people out there with his genetics. But
they weren't saying that really about his genetics when he wasn't winning. It was only after.
But if you show me, and who the hell am I? If you showed me a picture of him when he wasn't winning, I would tell you that's a genetic anomaly, because the way he's built. Ronnie looked magnificent when he wasn't even placing top 10 in the Olympia. He was incredible looking, and there's very few human beings that did what he did. You see guys now, even me, I turned pro. 2 years later, I was number 2 in the world in Olympia. Ronnie did what he did for a long time, and no one knew his name. Even Kevin Levrone, one of my favorite bodybuilders of all time, was like, he told him, like, what are you doing, man? Why are you still doing this? And Ronnie, because I love him, Very few people have that mentality. You guys, I don't care how hard you train. I don't care how good your genetics are. If you're hard on yourself mentally and you keep putting yourself down and saying, oh, my quads are weak, I don't have good genetics, I'm just structurally built this way, then that's what it is. You're right. If you think you suck, you're right. You're going to suck.
You're going to suck, and you're going to make that. You're going to sort of bring all that. You're going to. Your life experience is going to prove yourself right.
You're going to believe it. Yeah. How many beautiful women out there think they're ugly, and they feel ugly, and they act and feel and encompass ugliness. It's what they believe, what they feel. It doesn't matter. Your reality, fact, doesn't matter. What you believe matters. Yeah,
there's this notion that I always remind myself that everything is about perception, right? It's a perspective. Everybody's got a unique perspective, and which makes facts obsolete, because a fact is relative to the person who's observing. So take beauty, for instance. Beauty is really, as we know, is in the eye of the beholder. Beauty's judged based on who the viewer is, not who is being viewed. But we all see it the other way around.
What matters more, the way I feel about myself or the way others feel about me?
Right. The way you feel about yourself should matter most to you.
That matters more, right? But yet. There's always that one guy or one girl in the gym that's completely delusional. The guy is not in shape at all. He's not big, he's not lean. He's wearing a stringer and he's staring at himself and flexing. And he's like, oh, I look so great. And we look at that guy and we laugh. I looked at that guy for 10 years and laughed. And then it hit me like 10 years ago. I'm like, who's better off, him or me?
Right.
I look like everyone's goal, and everyone's coming up to me and saying, holy shit, you look incredible. But I'm not happy with the way I looked. I was always so down on myself and hard on myself. He, to the outside observer, doesn't look like he looks crazy. But to himself, he looks like an Adonis. So what matters more, what we think of ourselves or what others think? So those people that we laugh at, those delusional people, those people that some women that dress a little too skimpy when they shouldn't, they have a little extra weight. Well, you know what? If they're comfortable and they're happy with it, I mean, that's what matters. I commend them. Me, I be looking like one of the best bodybuilders out there, and this aesthetic free. There's a lot of times where I've looked incredible on the outside, but really didn't feel like it on the inside because we tear ourselves apart.
Yeah, it's this. It reminds me of that movie Shallow Hal. Remember that movie Shallow Hal? Yes,
perfect.
It's like a great example of like what really matters, about how we feel about ourselves, what we really see in our world, or what other people see in our world. Do you want to? And I've said it before. Like we tend to, as people, we tend to want consensus. We want consensus with others. We want people to agree with us. We want everyone to agree with. We want others to agree with us, and we want to agree with other people, and we want to create that kind of consensus. And that's that's what we justify as facts. And I'm with you. I don't buy it. But it is hard to. It is kind of funny because we live in a universe or in a world in an industry where judgment is the name of the game, right?
Here's the deal. Why do we have so much drug addiction and alcoholism and divorce and depression in celebrities? Why? Because for 5, 10, 15 years, everybody wants to know what they're doing, when they're eating, where they're eating, paparazzi, when they take a dump, everything. The people are up their asses. Then one day, no one gives a shit anymore. And they become depressed.
They don't
If you're dependent on that, listen, I'm living it. Like, people's opinions matter to me so much. And when someone would write something about me and post it, I would read every single comment. Now I don't care as much. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm going to show up the day of the show the way I show up. I don't give a shit. If you like me, thank you. I'm flattered. It's probably just a projection of yourself. So I don't take anything personally. If you don't like me, you don't like me. It's not a big deal. And when when people say don't take things personally, you take that as like negative comments, correct? I take it as everything. If I took shit personally, then every single person, you go on my profile right now on IG, people are calling me king. They're telling me I'm the best in the world. If I took things personally, then I would believe that, and my head would be this big, and I probably wouldn't work as hard. That's their projection. That's what they're putting that on me. I'm flattered, but that doesn't necessarily have to be my reality. I know how good I am. I know what my flaws are. I know what my strengths and my weaknesses are, and I'll go forward. And if I can help and touch certain people on the way, that's awesome. But I'm not going to let their opinion of me dictate my emotional state, my career, my life choices.
Was that, now you said before you have in the past, was that hard?
Absolutely. I cared way too much what people thought of me growing up.
Oh, really?
Once I got into social media, I was a lot older too. So it started to change. So luckily, like being in the industry and on social media, not so much. But when I was younger, I was very, very shy. I cared like what people thought of me way too much, like how my hair looked, how I dressed. I'm talking like high school, college, So imagine that person being in the limelight, being a bodybuilder, being on Instagram. I'm a completely different person. I don't care as much,
So like when you couple years, like when you really sort of catapulted up in the ranks here, how did that? Could you feel that shift then? Could you feel that change?
Yeah.
Because there's all of a sudden you have all these eyeballs on you now.
It was an awesome feeling of having people were calling me the classic prince. I was one of the first popular guys in classic physique, but I was also a little bit older. If I was younger, I don't know if I'd be able to handle that. It's a lot to handle. You see some of these young 20-something-year-old IFBB pros that are like with, hundreds of thousands of followers. It's a lot to handle. The comments, women, men, it could get to your head. I was a lot older. I was 34 when I turned pro, and then I wasn't in the limelight at that point. When I was finally in the limelight and started gaining a lot of recognition, I was 36 years old. So I consider myself, I had a good head on my shoulders. But it was an amazing feeling because I got a lot of positive energy and comments. No one was saying anything bad about me. You know what it is? You know what I mean? And then I placed second. I was doing great. And then once I placed fourth, then you have some people coming out and saying, you know, not your fan. It doesn't have to necessarily be something negative, but it could be hurtful or upsetting when you read it. I can't let that get to me. You know, even the best, the more popular you are, the more people people you're going to have that hate you, and the more people you're going to have that love you. There's people out there talking shit about Mother Teresa. You know what I mean? There's always going to be someone. And I'm not just saying this like, I don't let it bother me and then I'm going to go and cry after reading comments. I really don't. I don't even look at a lot of comments. I do my best to reply to comments on my page. But before, if like Generation Iron posted something about Arash Rahbar and there would be 50 comments, I'd read every single one.
Why? That can throw you around.
Right. Well, in the past, that's what I did. I think that's what anyone would do if they initially started to get attention. You know, you read everything, you look at everything.
How did that affect you?
It's when people say something negative, it's not easy. It's tough, you know, but now it doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me. I don't get a lot of negativity. Like I don't get people coming on my page. I think it's because of the way I carry myself, but it still happens time to time. I laugh. I don't even reply. I don't delete it. I don't erase it. I don't even look at it. The way I see it is I don't know you exist. I don't know who you are. I don't know your name. I really don't know that you're a person on this earth. You're on my profile. You're looking at my page. You clicked on my picture. You're viewing my page. You probably erased your comment 10 times and rewrote it. You're taking time out of your life. And honestly, if you're saying anything bad about me, I'm a pretty cool guy. If you knew me, you probably wouldn't. It's just a projection of your own shit. Those people are unhappy.
Absolutely.
Those people are sick. They're rotten from the inside. You know, misery loves company. I don't take that shit personally. If you see somebody on the road, because not if you cut them off and you're driving like a maniac, but if you accidentally do something or make a mistake, it was an accident and the guy goes crazy in his car, do you think that's a person that's happy?
Exactly.
A person that loves his wife and kids? He's probably miserable because he can't stand his wife and he's on the way home right now to deal with it, you know? So these are some things that I've learned, and I don't let it bother me at all in the least bit.
That would be hard. I know. I don't get much either negativity and stuff, but every blue moon I've gotten something, and I remember I used to be like that. It used to bother me because I was like, oh, why would somebody think that of me? Like, why would somebody, you know, like, but I do agree 100% and that whatever somebody else, whether it be a comment or whether it be their actions, it's always a reflection of what's going on within them. We all just use each other as our good excuse to vent it out or to express it.
Also view it on positive comments.
But exactly.
Let me ask you a question. This is one of the things that I think Instagram is really bad. If you could hear every single thought that your girlfriend, your wife, your friend had, would you be happy? No, you'd be. They probably have some terrible thoughts about you, like, oh, he smells. It's just a thought. It's just for a second. It's not, you know, it's not going to affect your relationship if you don't hear it. But what's happening is people are saying things that they wouldn't say in person. And even the positive, I meet people in person and 90% of the time they're very timid and very shy and they're just like, oh, nice to meet you. And then you have these people that are so outspoken. That's not you. What I say is on social media, do and act as you would in real life. If you wouldn't say something to my face, even if it's positive, if you wouldn't come up to me in Expo and say, I love you, you're the best, I wish I had your physique, don't say it on Instagram. And that goes to the negativity too. All the people, when was the last time you saw anybody walk up to a bodybuilder or a professional athlete and be like, I think you have terrible genetics, you suck, you're never conditioned, and you don't deserve your placing, and you're a disgrace to the sport. Like, I've seen people write this on bodybuilders' pages. Luckily not mine, because I'm kidding. But you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
When was the last time you saw that happen in real life? I've never had anyone say it.
Doesn't happen. Not to most people who are reasonably not disturbed.
I've never had one person ever come up to me and speak like that, but yet you'll see that on social media. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, there's
yourself and conduct yourself the way you would in real life. Don't use this social media platform as like a guard, almost like some guy being tough in his car on the highway giving you the finger because he knows what are you going to do on the highway. Once you pull over and tell him to pull over, he's like, he speeds off, you know? It's the security of the car, the security of social media.
Yeah, there's this unmetering of the voice that like what you're saying, that people tend to take that meter off when they're on social media, and they'll say things and do things that they wouldn't normally do in real life. So it kind of builds a very false, and it gives the person who they're projecting it to a false sense of what's going on too. In other words, somebody can make some very negative comments about something, like you'd post a picture of something, and there's always somebody out there with some criticism, right? Like give you some criticism about something, when really, like like you said, like normally you wouldn't hear that coming from them, because most people would know that, like, okay, like that's just being negative, like you know, but we tend to hear anything and everything that comes out of people's brains. It just sort of gets out there because there's no metering. I think that we do need a little bit of like social metering, just with ourselves. Like we each need to say, is this comment worthy?
I never say anything negative, so I don't even, when I speak about myself, I'm talking about the positive. I make it a point, like if I post on someone's page, hey man, you look awesome. I do that in real life. If you know me too. Personally, I'm like that. If I see a girl or a guy getting ready for a show, maybe I've never even spoken to them, but I see the hard work they're putting in. I'm like, hey, I saw you yesterday, but you look great. And you see they light up and they get so happy. Like if you're going to do that shit on social media, if you're going to like some girl's page and tell her, oh, so sexy, fire, 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 heart, 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 and then slide into her DM, at least do it in person. At least have the balls to go up to the girl you think that's pretty in the gym or in the supermarket and say, hey, I'm sorry to bother you. I don't mean to be out of line, but I think you caught my eye. I think you're beautiful. But people don't have the balls, for lack of a better word, to do that, and that's what's happening. People are married to this. This is everyone's friend, but they can't have a functional relationship, verbal, communicative relationship with a human being, but they can with their phone. So you can yell at someone, curse at someone, or try to hit on someone or give someone a compliment via this thing, but you can't do it verbally in real life. Where does that leave you?
Yeah. So what do you think where do you think this is going? Do you think we're in for like having bigger problems?
100%. This is just the beginning. Absolutely.
Especially when you start thinking about the next generation of technology really being embedded, right?
I put an alarm on my Instagram, so like every day, and if I'm on Instagram for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever I want the alarm to be, it'll tell me, hey, you've been on this long today. So like I'll make it a point to go and post, because I post and I reply. So I spend a good amount of time on Instagram. If I wasn't a bodybuilder marketing myself, I would not have Instagram. And I'm not talking shit. I didn't have Instagram. I started my Instagram 2 weeks, my account 2 weeks before the Atlantic States, my first show ever. And I documented my bodybuilding journey. That's all I use it for. But yes, it's getting worse. it's not getting better. It's getting worse. We spend way too much time on it. So why at 38 years old should I have like people have to tell friends like, hey man, put your phone away at dinner?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
There's some people I hang out with where their phone's not even anywhere near to be found. But then I have friends with their phones on the table. I don't like that.
So do you have certain rules in your life that you live by when it comes to your phone and your technology?
I do not use my phone or take my phone out at dinner at all. Most of the time, if I'm going to dinner or something, especially if it's like one-on-one with someone, I'm going to leave it in my jacket or in the car, not even bring it with me. If I'm speaking to a friend on an important topic and they want my attention, I'm going to look at them in the eyes. Because me personally, even if there's been studies done. Humans are not good multitaskers.
Yeah, I know that.
They're not. We're not good multitaskers. There's actual studies done. So I'm the type of person when I talk very passionately like I am now, when I'm talking to my friend, it could be about the dumbest thing. It could be about getting new tires in my car. But like if I'm talking to him, that means that I want feedback and there's a purpose to it. If he's on his phone looking at nothing, I'm going to feel like you're not giving me your undivided attention. Oh, I hear you. I listen to you. And they'll say back what you said, showing that they're listening. But that doesn't mean shit. That doesn't mean that they're really absorbing it, processing it, and giving me the best possible answer, rebuttal, or, remedy for whatever the hell it is I'm speaking. They might just, miss a few words, miss a few of their own thoughts. We are not good multitaskers. If you want to do something, do that one thing and then move on. So being on the treadmill and reading a magazine or a book is the stupidest shit you can do, because You're not going to be able to move quickly, because if you move quickly, your eyes bounce. You're not going to be able to read rapidly and quickly because you're moving too much. So you're reading a book slowly and in a shitty manner, and you're doing cardio bad. You're not doing good cardio. So just instead of doing 45 minutes of that, do 20 minutes, 22 minutes and a half of one and 22 minutes and a half of another, and be more efficient.
Right.
You know, so
I have a rule that I don't touch my phone for like the first 30 minutes when I get up in the morning. So I can meditate, I can do my normal morning routine. I always thought that was a good, because the last thing I want to do is start my day stressed.
Yeah.
So looking at the different to-dos, looking at the different messages coming across, it automatically creates that sense of urgency that I got to go do something, right? I'm distracted, I got to do something. And I don't think that's a great way to be in my moment. And so that's my rule. And I also, whenever I'm talking with somebody, I don't look at my phone. If I'm talking with somebody, it's the most irritating thing that I could think of is when you're talking to somebody and then they go like this.
Yeah.
Like, fuck me.
So right now I have my phone on, instead of vibrate, I took off vibrate, and my silent button is silent. So right now I have my phone facing down so it doesn't light up. And I probably have 50 messages, and it's on silent. And another thing, I changed that vibrate to silent like a few weeks ago at 7, 8 o'clock, give or take, if I remember, I put it on that. So when I put my phone to charge, it's not going off. Even if I tell myself, oh, I'm not going to get it, it gives you anxiety.
Yeah.
When the phone goes off, that shit gives you anxiety. So I'll check it, I'll check it at 9, I'll check it at 10, just to see if I have any missed messages or anything important. But it's not constantly beeping at from 7 to 10, 11, 7 at night till the next morning. I don't turn the volume on. If you put your phone on silent and you have an alarm set, the alarm will still make noise. Right. But your alerts won't, So yeah, I think the first half hour of your day and the last half hour of your day should be without it. I think that's really smart what you do.
Yeah, I picked. It was suggested by somebody else that did this and they liked it. And essentially, I agree. I'm always trying to find ways to decrease the stress in my life, or for me to control my experience, and I control my experience by my focus. And so my phone absolutely takes my focus away from me because it's got all the alerts and messages and everything. So I want to be able to meter that, control it. I always thought it would be kind of sad just to have this device control my life to such a point. It's kind of gotten that way for many of us, I think.
It is. It absolutely is.
So it's kind of interesting to me. I always like get people's perspectives on it because it sounds like that a lot of people just, there's great things about it, and it absolutely has enhanced our experience in this world. But it's also a double-edged sword. It's like aspirin. You can take too many.
Well, don't you dislike the idea that a lot of our likes and dislikes are being recorded?
Yeah, I guess I don't know what I don't have any idea what kind of what I get it. I get nobody likes the idea of being tracked, right?
It's crazy. I will be on this computer on my desktop. I will go research sneakers. Then I go and I open my Instagram on my phone, and the ad is Nike, the sneaker that I was looking at.
I know they're tracked. All that stuff has been tracked.
I'm not on my Instagram on this page, but they're all linked. iCloud, Gmail, Google, whatever it may be, it's linked. So if you think about it, if a friend did that to you, you'd get upset at that. That's what's happening.
Hey, bud, what are you doing? Follow me around?
Sometimes we impulsively think, let me look at something real quick, but you don't actually purchase it. We're emotional.
So do you think that's a bad thing? Do you think it's
absolutely
like someone's tracking all of our behaviors? What's the bad?
A lot of people will say, "Oh, this is conspiracy." No, it's not conspiracy. Yes, absolutely, it's not good. It's without your consent. Things are being tracked and stored. All your data, all your likes, dislikes, everything is being stored. Your location, everything. It's even to the point where I don't know. I think it's an invasion of privacy to a certain extent.
Absolutely, I do think that there is.
I don't want. Now, everything I say, it's going to sound like conspiracy theories. But those DNA tests.
Yeah.
Now there's 1 million DNA tests for brain chemistry, for your ancestors, for diets.
I've done it. Yeah.
A lot of people. The government owns one or two of those companies because now they have every human being's DNA. Look, if you've never been arrested before, and you commit a crime and you leave DNA, semen, saliva, blood, they don't know who you are. They don't know whose DNA that is until one day you get arrested and they check your DNA and you're in the system. But if you do this gene swab test or whatever and they have your DNA, you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, yeah.
You know?
I fall into the unusual camp of me being able to be mistaken for somebody who's my genetic identical. I have an excuse. It wasn't me. It was my brother.
You know what's crazy? I think we're up on time, but I'll say this one last thing. My sister's beagle passed away. She just rescued one from a testing facility.
Oh.
And someone was telling her that they're all clones at testing facilities.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
That's wild. Why?
I don't know. I guess because they want to have the same exact dog genetically to see how the impact, you know what I mean? So they can do because like if you have 5 different people, that's why when you do tests, you have to test on so many different people because everyone has different reaction. Right. But if you have 10 of the same exact individual, then every single compound, every single product that you use on them, you can tell, okay, this one's not creating an allergic reaction. This one definitely is.
Oh.
But if they test it on me and you, maybe I'm just getting an allergic reaction. You're not. But I guess having a clone is more consistent data.
Oh, I see.
All experiments, all studies, all of these things are done in really controlled environments. And what's even more, there's nothing better as far as controlling than having an exact duplicate.
That's why they like having they like doing testing with identical twins and stuff.
Exactly, because it's literally controlling every element of the experiment, and it's a complete duplicate, you know?
Yeah, kind of funny because my brother and I have done some cool stuff. When we were kids, my mother got free babysitting from the university at Oregon State that we lived in Corvallis at the time. And from the psychology department, they watched us. There were some graduate students, the ladies there, and they would ask us questions, and they just would observe us and did some studies on twins, and it was really fascinating. It was kind of one of the things that came out of it was that they said that if one of us was having a good day, the other one was having a bad day. We had these role reversals.
Wow.
So it's kind of interesting stuff. But you know, like I really, when we were young, because you know, when you're identical twin, you always get compared. Everyone's always comparing you. And when if I got a blue shirt, he got a red one. Like, you know, we got the same thing, but just different color, or we got the exact same thing. And so you're always struggling to have your own identity, I think, as identical twin. And luckily for me, I knew so many twins that hated their sibling. My brother and I actually loved each other very much. So we didn't have that kind of rivalry, but we definitely had this idea that we would have told you when we were young that we were so different. Like, oh, we're like, that's my brother, I'm me, we're totally different. But the older we get, now being 48, it's like, I think we would say that we're more alike than what we once thought. Like, wow. So much more alike. Yeah, there's so much more that's hardwired that you just don't really realize until you've lived a life and you're like, okay, we're alike in this, we're alike in this, we're alike in this. And some of that stuff does not feel like choice.
I think a lot of it has to do with genetic and DNA and all that stuff, you guys being identical twins. But a big part of it also has to do with, you know, we are who we were raised by and all the experiences we had. Your parents were the same exact age for you and him when you were 5, when you were 10, when you were 15. The same exact things happened in your school, your neighborhood, your house, with your family. So you guys literally, and you were probably side by side, shoulder to shoulder for the first 15 years of your life, like probably 20 hours out throughout the day. So you guys had literally the same experiences. So my memory of 1986 Christmas is going to be different than my sister's memory of 1986 Christmas because she was 5 years older. You know, everything's going to be different. But for you guys, even if you weren't identical twins, even if you're just two just brother and sister or whatever, but the same exact age growing up, it's going to affect your upbringing. Absolutely. And how things affect you. You know, at this age, your parents got a divorce. At this age, you know, certain ages, certain times in your life, certain things are more traumatic, more detrimental to your,
absolutely.
Your development.
It's funny how even though we're so identical, we definitely interpreted things differently.
Yeah.
Like the messages. We both experienced some racism growing up, and it didn't affect me like it affected him. So he actually ended up spending a career writing about it, and he's very sensitive to that topic in terms of like his research and other students, and he takes a leadership role in some of those things. So, but for me, like I chalked it up to they don't know me. Like if you know like somebody who's going to judge me for the way I look or what I know or don't know, they just don't know me. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with them with somebody else holding an opinion that I don't agree with. I don't need that kind of consensus. Although I will say that was hard for me when I was young. It was harder. I think it's hard. I think as you get older, at least for me, as I've gotten older, it's been easier to accept that, hey man, this world is filled with diverse opinions, and they don't mean anything unless I make them have a meaning for me. Yeah. So, and I impress on everyone that I talk to that the meaning that we have in our life is the meaning that we create. We create it. It's not. There's nothing static about it. You can create, like you were saying earlier. You can create something. Some experience can be very meaningful for you, or it can not so meaningful. It's up to you, and it's about what kind of messages are you telling yourself about it, and what are you choosing to believe. Yeah. So, well, man, I always love talking to you, Arash. You're always a good guy. What's going on this next year? Tell me about what you're going to do the next year for Olympia. Yeah. So I have from now to September to rehab, get back to 100%, improve some areas, and get shredded. I know you'll do it, man. I'm always impressed by the way you look, and I know your bar is always set high. So. So keep. I want to see. I think that you have quite a bit of like this next year. I think this will be a good year for you. I think it really will be. There's a lot. This whole classic class though is so competitive. It is, but everyone asks me like, do you look at other guys? Do you focus on other guys? You can't. I mean, if I focus on other guys and look at other guys, especially when you're having not the best day, it's going to affect you. I have to be my best. I can't focus on them. And it is competitive, but I'm in the mix. I've been the top 5 guy for the past 3 years. What do you do? So what are you doing now to keep yourself grounded through all this, especially with social media? Oh, I don't know. I value humility. So for me, there's no problem staying grounded. I never let shit get to my head. Okay, good. Well, I pose on stage in my underwear. There's more important things. There's starving children out there, Yeah. So. The world does not revolve around me and my posing trunks. Yeah, good. I'm glad you know that. Well, I think it's also sometimes we do get caught up in our own stuff, right? Like our own stories, and we forget that there's a larger picture out there. So I'm glad. What else? Is there anything else cool going on that's in the upcoming next couple of months for you? Anything? That's really it. I'll probably be doing some traveling for Dymatize, but our 2019 schedule hasn't been. At least for me, it hasn't been announced. Sometimes I go to FIBO, or I went to Dubai this year, so that was finished. And that's it. I'm gonna try. Arnold? Dymatize probably won't have a booth there. I would like to go, so if I go, maybe I'll just be going on my own. Okay. I'll see. Maybe I'll do something with Generation Iron. I'm not sure. I would like to go, but it's not a definite for me. Well, I hope you go, man. I'd love to see you there, and of course, like usual. But no matter what, man. I know you'll be training hard, and this next Olympia will be a good one. No other shows before the Olympia, just the Olympia. I feel like I need to get a little better, need to rest a little bit. Good. Gonna keep the beard? For now, yes, but I always take it off for shows. Of course. All right, my friend. Well, you have a wonderful evening. I appreciate you taking the time and talking with me. Thank you. All right, brother. Talk to you soon.
Handle your high with Tadayoshi.